Peter Porco. In November 2004, a quiet town called Delmar in New York became the site of a shocking crime. A man named Peter Porco was killed in his own home, and his wife Joan was badly hurt. The person later found guilty of the attack was their own son, Christopher Porco. Peter and Joan Porco were married for many years and had two sons, Jonathan and Christopher. Jonathan was the older son. He joined the Navy and was seen as responsible and focused. Christopher was the younger one, and while growing up, he often lied and got into trouble. He wanted people to believe he came from a rich family, even though that was not true. As a college student, Christopher began to have serious money problems. He spent more than he could afford and tried to keep up an image of wealth. He bought expensive things, including a yellow Jeep, even though he had no real way to pay for them. To get money, he lied, stole, and forged his father's name on bank papers. He took out large loans using his parents' credit without their permission. Peter and Joan found out what Christopher had done and were very upset. Peter sent angry emails and warned his son that he would go to the bank and report the fraud. He still told Christopher that he loved him and wanted to help him fix his life. Peter asked his son to come home so they could talk. On the night of November 14, 2004, someone entered the Porco home while Peter and Joan were asleep. The house alarm was turned off using the correct code, and the phone line was cut. Peter and Joan were attacked in their bedroom with a fireman's axe that belonged to the family. Peter was hit many times in the head. Joan was also badly hurt, but did not die. Even after his injuries, Peter did not die right away. Because of severe damage to his brain, his body kept moving even though he was not fully aware of what had happened. He went to the bathroom, went to the kitchen, packed his lunch, and even picked up the morning paper. Blood was found all over the house, showing his path. At some point, he collapsed near the front door and died there. When Peter did not show up for work, a co-worker went to check on him. He looked through a window and saw Peter's body on the floor. Police were called right away. Joan was still alive and taken to the hospital. She had severe injuries and lost one eye. While being treated, Joan was asked simple yes or no questions. When asked if the attacker was a family member, she nodded yes. When asked if it was her older son Jonathan, she shook her head no. When asked if it was Christopher, she nodded yes. Christopher said he had been at his college dorm that night, hours away from Delmar. But police found problems with his story. Security cameras showed his yellow Jeep leaving campus that night and returning the next morning. And a neighbor also reported seeing a similar Jeep near the Porco home during the night. Police believed Christopher drove home, used the alarm code, attacked his parents, and then returned to school. They believed money and fear of being exposed were the reasons for the crime. Christopher was arrested and charged with murder and attempted murder. During the trial, his mother Joan defended him. She said she did not believe her son hurt them and said she loved him. She even helped pay for his legal costs. In 2006, after hearing all the evidence, the jury found Christopher Porco guilty. He was sentenced to 25 years to life for killing his father and another 25 years to life for attacking his mother. The case is remembered as one of the most disturbing family crimes in New York history. On October 5, 2003, hundreds of spectators gathered along the cliffs of Colorado's Royal Gorge, eagerly awaiting the grand finale of the inaugural Go Fast Games, a festival honoring the world's most daring base jumpers and wingsuit pilots. Among the stars that day was 30-year-old Australian Dwayne Weston, already celebrated as one of the sport's most skilled and fearless pioneers. The stunt he had planned was unprecedented. Weston and his close friend Jeb Corliss would leap from a plane and execute simultaneous maneuvers over the Royal Gorge Bridge, Corliss swooping beneath it, while Weston would glide just meters above the deck in his striking red wingsuit. Around midday, the crowd tilted their heads skyward as Weston jumped from roughly 366 meters above the gorge, hurtling downward at immense speed. He arced gracefully toward the bridge, and for a fleeting moment, it seemed flawless. But as he neared his target, it became horrifyingly clear that he was lower than intended. Before anyone could react, Weston's leg struck the bridge's steel railing with devastating force, one leg torn away instantly. His parachute deployed automatically from the impact, but he was now spinning uncontrollably, trailing blood as he plunged nearly 300 meters onto the jagged rocks below. The collision was unsurvivable. Weston died instantly, while Corliss narrowly avoided a collision and landed safely, shaken and horrified. In later recollections, Corliss remembered Weston's pre-jump mantra, and fighting back tears, reflected that Dwayne had been doing what he loved and would not have minded the outcome. On January 29, 2000, 27-year-old right-winger Trent McCclary of the Montreal Canadiens lowered himself to block a shot in a game against the Philadelphia Flyers. He had made this move countless times before, but this time, everything changed. The puck didn't hit his shin pads or gloves as usual. It struck him squarely in the throat. McCclary immediately grabbed his neck, his face turning blue as he struggled to draw breath in front of a stunned arena. The medical staff rushed onto the ice and performed an emergency tracheotomy right at rinkside, using whatever instruments were available to open an airway. Minutes later, he was whisked by ambulance to Montreal General Hospital, his life precariously balanced. The injuries were severe, a crushed larynx and a collapsed lung. Despite undergoing multiple surgeries, McClary's professional hockey career came to an abrupt end. Louis Bill Conradt, Jr. Between 2004 and 2007, NBC's Dateline aired To Catch a Predator. The show tricked men into thinking they were meeting minors at certain houses. Host Chris Hansen confronted them on camera, and the men were arrested by police. The show became very popular and caught not only internet users but also trusted professionals. One famous case happened in 2006 in Texas. Police and NBC went to the home of Assistant District Attorney Louis Bill Conradt, Jr. He died by suicide as they arrived. His sister later sued NBC for about $105 million, criticizing how the show handled the situation. The show mixed journalism, police work, and reality TV in a very risky way. It raised serious questions about tricking people, forcing confessions, and whether the police should work with entertainment media. Girls Gone Wild and Exploitation. Girls Gone Wild sent camera crews to spring break spots and college bars to film women. Some of these women were underage. Many were filmed doing inappropriate acts while drunk. Lawsuits said Girls Gone Wild used tricks, pressure, and sometimes filmed minors without permission. Girls Gone Wild ran non-stop late-night ads and made hundreds of millions of dollars at its peak. The founder, Joe Francis, was later charged with tax crimes and pled guilty to filing false tax returns. Girls Gone Wild made exploitation seem normal and funny. It helped create a culture where taking advantage of women was treated as entertainment, not harm. Even though the company eventually fell apart, its influence was big. People often remember it as silly or cheesy, forgetting how predatory it really was. Jamar Pinkney Jr. Jamar Pinkney Jr. was born on August 18, 1994, to Lizette Cherry and Jamar Pinkney Sr. His father worked as a mail carrier and was very involved in his children's lives. Jamar grew up in Highland Park, Michigan, as a bright and kind boy. Friends called him Teddy Bear because he was loving and caring. He liked playing football and was careful to keep his grades up. At 15 years old, he was a quiet and well-behaved sophomore at Martin Luther King High School. His teachers said he did well in school, and his friends said he was always there for them when they needed help. On November 15, 2009, Jamar's mother had a serious conversation with him. He admitted to having inappropriate contact with his 3-year-old half-sister. Feeling upset, Lizette called Jamar Sr. in the middle of the night to tell him what had happened. The next morning, on November 16, 2009, Jamar Sr. went to the duplex where Jamar and his mother lived. The building was split into 2 units. Lizette and Jamar were downstairs, while other family members, Yolanda Cherry and Latonia Prather, were upstairs. When Jamar Sr. arrived, he confronted his son. After hearing Jamar admit what had happened, he began to physically beat him. Yolanda and Prather heard the noise and went to check. Yolanda was the first to come in and saw her nephew being beaten. She tried to stop it and pushed Jamar Sr. At this point, Jamar Sr. pulled out a gun. He pointed it at Yolanda and then at Lizette, threatening them. He continued to hit Jamar, forced him to take off his clothes, made him get on his knees and beg for forgiveness, and then dragged him outside to a nearby field. There, he killed his own son execution style by shooting him in the head. Jamar Sr. was arrested and charged with first-degree murder, among other charges. His defense said he acted in temporary insanity because he was so upset about what his son had done. However, the jury did not accept this explanation. He was found guilty of second-degree murder, possession of a firearm during a felony, and other charges. He was sentenced to 37 to 80 years in prison. Jamar's death devastated his family. Friends and neighbors remembered him as gentle and generous. Britney Spears and the media in the 2000s. During the 2000s, Britney Spears was constantly followed by paparazzi. They made huge amounts of money from her photos. When she had mental health problems, tabloids turned it into entertainment and treated her like she had done something wrong. One famous moment was when she shaved her head. The photo made millions of dollars for the media. People on TV, including the hosts of Family Feud and late-night comedians, made fun of her struggles, like her custody battle. Later, Britney was put under a conservatorship that lasted 13 years. Britney's story shows how cruel the media was to women, especially young women, in the 2000s. Her problems were treated as jokes and entertainment. Because people called it celebrity drama, many forget how unfairly she was treated and how much her life was controlled and damaged by the public and the media. At first, Happy Tree Friends looked like a fun kids show. The animals were cute, the colors were bright, and the music was happy. But if you kept watching, you quickly saw it was very violent. The show started online in 1999 and became popular in the 2000s. It showed little forest animals dying in really horrible ways. Each episode usually began happy and fun, but then turned into chaos with lots of blood. What made it worse was how it tricked people. Many kids watched it thinking it was safe and ended up seeing really scary and disturbing scenes. Drug PSAs. In the early 2000s, many TV ads warned kids about drugs. Some showed strange and sad scenes, like a girl who deflated after getting high, or a boy who was shown with a gun because he was not thinking clearly. One ad showed an egg cooking to compare it to a brain. Another showed a dog talking to its owner, saying she had changed since she started using drugs. These ads were shown a lot during the day, and kids often saw them while watching cartoons. They were dark, upsetting, and hard to forget. Mark Hogancamp, 2000. On April 8, 2000, a man named Mark Hogancamp was badly attacked outside a bar in Kingston, New York. 5 men beat him very hard and left him almost dead. They hit his head many times, and his skull was broken. Because of this, Mark suffered serious brain damage. Mark was in a coma for 9 days. When he woke up, he believed it was the year 1984. He thought he was in the Navy and serving in another country. He had no memory of his real life. He could not remember his past, his work, his marriage, or the people he knew. The attack took away almost all of his memories. Mark had to learn how to walk, talk, and live again. He slowly got back his movement, but his memory never returned. Before the attack, Mark was an artist who liked to draw, and after the attack, he could no longer draw the way he used to. This loss was very hard for him. The men who attacked Mark were later arrested and punished, but the damage to Mark's life was already done. He spent weeks in the hospital and needed a lot of care. However, his insurance stopped paying, so he was sent home early. He also had to stop therapy after 1 year because he could not afford it. Mark felt alone and forgotten. To deal with his pain and fear, Mark found a new way to express himself. he began to build a small model town in his yard. He called it Marwinkol. The town was set during World War II in Belgium and was always under attack by Nazi soldiers. In the town, Mark created a doll version of himself named Hoagie. In Marwinkol, Hoagie fights the Nazis again and again. These Nazi figures stand for the men who attacked Mark in real life. In the stories Mark created, Hoagie always survives and wins. This helped Mark feel safe and strong in a way he could not feel in real life. Mark used dolls, small buildings, and objects he found or reused. He made scenes full of detail and took photos of them. He even made scenes that showed his own attack, but this time he was in control. Through Marwinkol, Mark could release his anger and fear without hurting anyone. After the attack, Mark felt very scared of men. He trusted women more and felt safer around them. Because of this, many of the heroes in Marwinkol are strong women who help Hoagie fight the Nazis. The town became a safe place for Mark's mind and feelings. Mark also discovered something else about himself after the attack. When he returned home, he found many women's shoes in his closet. At first, he was confused. Later, he learned they were his. When he tried them on, he felt happy and calm. Even though he could not remember his past, this part of him felt right. Over time, people began to notice Mark's work. A photographer neighbor shared photos of Marwinkol, and they were shown in art spaces. Later, a documentary film was made about Mark and his town. His story reached people around the world. Even though he lost his memories, he found a new way to live, heal, and tell his story. Armin Meiwes. Armin Meiwes was a man from Germany, born on December 1, 1961. His father was a police officer, and his mother was much older than his father. She was very controlling and jealous, often causing fights in the family. Armin was the youngest of 3 children. His older brothers left home when they were teenagers, and later his father disappeared without explanation. Armin, left alone with his mother, grew up in a tense and unhappy home, doing chores and helping care for her. When he was young, Armin loved reading books. One of them, Robinson Crusoe, had some parts about cannibalism, and this sparked his curiosity. By the age of 10, he started thinking more about the idea. When he grew up, he joined the army at 19 and served for 12 years, but he also began drinking heavily, which caused problems. After leaving the army, he returned to live with his aging mother, helping her with daily tasks and medications. Later, he studied computer engineering and got a job at a bank. In the 1990s, the internet was new and not well regulated. Armin discovered online forums where people shared unusual fantasies, including cannibalism. He joined these forums and started talking to others who had the same interest. Sometimes he would buy meat from butcher shops and arrange it at home to pretend it was human. This gained him admiration from others in these forums. In 1999, his mother died. Armin then had the big house all to himself. He converted a room into a private space where he could act out his fantasies. 2 months later, he posted an online ad seeking a volunteer who would willingly let him eat their flesh. Many people replied, but most backed out at the last minute. Eventually, a man named Bernd Jürgen Brand, who was 43 years old, responded. Bernd shared the same fantasy and had detailed requests for what Armin should do with his body. They exchanged emails for days and agreed on a date. On March 9, 2001, Bernd arrived at Armin's house. Armin prepared him with alcohol and pills to reduce pain, which Bernd consented to. They had an intimate encounter before Armin carried out Bernd's requests. Armin began by cutting off Bernd's private parts, and then moved on to killing him by cutting his throat. He then dismembered the body, storing some parts in a freezer and burying the skull in the garden. Armin cooked parts of the body and ate it, describing the taste as similar to pork but stronger. He continued to eat Bernd's flesh over the next several months. He photographed and recorded everything, later posting some images online, which shocked the online community. By the end of 2001, Armin sought another volunteer. An Austrian student saw Armin's posts and realized the acts were real, then reported him to the police. On December 10, 2002, police searched Armin's home and found human remains in his freezer. He confessed immediately, providing all emails and evidence from his computer. Armin was first sentenced to 8.5 years in prison because Bernd had volunteered. However, after appeals, the court recognized that he had intentionally killed Bernd for pleasure, and on May 10, 2006, Armin Meiwes was sentenced to life imprisonment. In a surprising twist, Armin later became a vegetarian. His case is known worldwide because of its extreme and unusual nature. It has also inspired pop culture references, including music and TV shows. Tommy Silverstein, the most isolated prisoner. Tommy Silverstein was born in 1952 and grew up in Long Beach, California. His childhood was not calm or happy. His mother married and divorced several times, and one of her husbands later adopted Tommy, giving him the last name Silverstein. As a child, Tommy was shy and often bullied. Other kids picked on him because he was Jewish and because he seemed weak. Over time, he learned to fight back. His mother believed you should defend yourself, and this shaped how he reacted to danger later in life. Tommy did not get into serious trouble until he was 19 years old. At that age, he was arrested for armed robbery. He was sent to San Quentin prison and served 4 years. After his release, he met the man he believed was his real father, along with his uncle. The three of them committed more armed robberies together. They were caught, and this time the judge showed no mercy. Tommy was sentenced to 15 years in prison in 1977. He would never leave prison again. While serving his sentence, Tommy became involved with a white prison gang called the Aryan Brotherhood. Life inside prison was violent, and gangs had a lot of power. In 1980, Tommy was accused of killing another inmate who belonged to a rival gang. He was convicted and given a life sentence, but that conviction was later overturned because witnesses were found to have lied. Even so, his reputation inside prison became very dangerous. Tommy was then moved to a very harsh prison in Marion, Illinois. There, tensions between gangs were high. Another gang leader was transferred into the same prison while Tommy was still on trial for a second murder he denied committing. The two men were not kept apart. Tommy believed prison staff allowed this on purpose. Soon after, Tommy stabbed the gang leader many times and killed him. After this, Tommy became a top member of the Aryan Brotherhood and received another life sentence. In 1983, a prison guard named Merle Klutz was assigned to closely watch Tommy. Tommy claimed the guard treated him badly and often harassed him. One day, while being taken to the shower, Tommy escaped his handcuffs with a homemade key. Another prisoner gave him a homemade knife. Tommy stabbed the guard many times, killing him. Tommy said he did this because of how the guard treated him, but an investigation said the guard had not done anything wrong. After this killing, the prison system decided Tommy could never be around other people again. He was placed in total isolation. This meant he stayed alone in a special cell 24 hours a day, every day. The lights were always on, and he had no direct human contact. His cell was built so he never had to leave it, even to shower. This kind of isolation was extreme and very rare. Tommy stayed in this condition for decades. He was moved between prisons, but always kept alone. For many years, he was not allowed books, art, or television. Later, he was given some items, but they were often taken away again. He said this constant taking and giving was meant to break him. Despite everything, Tommy spent his time writing and drawing when he could. He believed solitary confinement caused deep mental harm and said it destroyed a person's sense of humanity. He also believed the prison system cared more about punishment than change. Tommy Silverstein spent more time in complete isolation than almost any other prisoner in the world. His release date was set far beyond a normal human lifespan. Whether he was a monster or a product of extreme prison violence is still debated, but his story remains one of the most extreme examples of isolation ever used in prison. Russ McKamey and McKamey Manor. McKamey Manor was a haunted house attraction run by a man named Russ McKamey. It became known as one of the most extreme and disturbing haunted experiences in the world. While most haunted houses are meant to scare people for fun, McKamey Manor slowly turned into something much darker. Russ McKamey was born in 1959 in California. As a child, he loved Halloween and scary things. In school, he was involved in theater and enjoyed putting on shows. His love for scares followed him into adulthood. Russ later joined the U.S. Navy and served for over 20 years. Even while in the Navy, he said he continued to scare people for fun by setting up small haunted experiences for others. After many years of service, he retired and returned to civilian life. In the late 1980s and 1990s, Russ began building haunted houses at his home. At first, these were normal and family-friendly. Kids and parents could walk through, see spooky decorations, and get scared in a harmless way. Local newspapers even described Russ as a friendly neighbor who loved Halloween. Over time, however, the haunted house began to change. Russ wanted to make his attraction more extreme than any other. Slowly, the haunted house stopped being about fake scares and started to involve real physical pain. By the early 2000s, the attraction became known as McKamey Manor. The experience itself became much more intense. People were yelled at, touched, tied up, pushed, and forced into uncomfortable situations. Participants were often blindfolded and led through dark rooms. They were sprayed with water, covered in dirt, and made to crawl through tight spaces. Videos of these experiences began appearing online. Many showed people crying, shaking, and begging to stop. Russ claimed that everyone who entered had agreed to everything beforehand. He said it was all voluntary and just part of the experience. As the videos spread, McKamey Manor became famous. Some people were curious and wanted to test themselves. Others were shocked and believed it was abuse, not entertainment. To enter McKamey Manor, participants had to sign a very long waiver. The waiver listed many possible dangers, including injury, stress, fear, and lasting harm. It said participants could not sue for what happened inside. Even with the waiver, many legal experts later said it would not protect Russ from serious crimes. In 2013, McKamey Manor was featured on television and praised as an extreme haunted attraction. There was soon a waiting list, and Russ claimed thousands of people wanted to try it. Around this time, reports from former participants became more alarming. Some said they were hit, choked, waterboarded, and shocked. Others said they were forced to eat unpleasant things or stay in painful positions for long periods of time. One woman, Laura, shared photos online showing herself badly bruised and injured after her visit. She said she used a safe word several times, but the abuse did not stop right away. She later said she felt pressured to record a video praising the experience before she was allowed to get medical help. Russ denied doing anything wrong. He pointed to the waiver and the videos where participants said they enjoyed the experience. Critics argued these videos were filmed under fear and pressure. Over the years, Russ's personal life also became troubled. His longtime partner, Carol, helped fund and run McKamey Manor for many years. After they broke up, she accused Russ of physical and emotional abuse. She said Russ was controlling, violent, and dangerous. She also claimed he spoke about disturbing thoughts involving children, which Russ strongly denied. These claims were never proven in court. Russ's own daughter also cut off contact with him and supported these claims. In 2016, McKamey Manor shut down in California after tax problems. Russ moved to Tennessee and reopened the attraction there. This new version was even more extreme. He also began offering a cash prize of $20,000 to anyone who could finish the experience. No one ever won. Many people believed the prize was impossible to earn because Russ would stop the experience before anyone could complete it. He often claimed it was for safety reasons. The Tennessee version of McKamey Manor appeared less organized and more personal. Instead of complex haunted sets, it often involved physical punishment, yelling, and long endurance tests. Critics said it looked more like torture than a haunted house. Online petitions began calling for the attraction to be shut down. One investigation revealed that many of the videos Russ posted were edited and misleading. Some participants were told one thing would happen, but something else was done instead. It was also revealed that Russ kept full, unedited footage of participants that he did not release. This footage allegedly showed much more serious abuse. Some of this material was later given to police, but no charges came from it at the time. In recent years, McKamey Manor has mostly stopped operating as it once did. The experience now appears much smaller and less popular. In 2024, Russ was arrested in Tennessee after being accused of assaulting his much younger girlfriend. The charges were serious and included attempted murder and sexual assault. However, months later, all charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. This decision caused anger and confusion among many who had followed the case for years. No matter how it is viewed, McKamey Manor changed how people think about fear, consent, and where entertainment should draw the line. The Curt Jarant Airport Incident. In April 2010, something very strange happened at Liverpool John Lennon Airport in the UK. It was a busy Easter weekend, and the airport was full of people getting ready to travel. Among the crowds were two women pushing an elderly man in a wheelchair. At first, nothing seemed unusual about them. They looked like a normal family traveling together. The older woman was 66 years old, and the younger woman was 41. The man in the wheelchair was 91 years old. He was the older woman's husband and the younger woman's stepfather. The women said they were flying back to Berlin, Germany after visiting the UK. Mr. Jarant was wearing sunglasses and sitting very still in the wheelchair. His head was leaning back, and he did not move or speak. The women told airport staff that he was asleep. They explained that he was old, unwell, and tired. When the family arrived at the airport, a taxi driver helped unload the wheelchair, and an airport worker, Andrew Milea, helped lift the man from the taxi. Andrew noticed something was wrong. The man's face felt unusually cold. He immediately suspected the man was dead. Andrew told the women his concern, but they insisted he always slept that way, and there was nothing to worry about. Still uneasy, Andrew reported the situation to airport security. The family was taken to a private room, and first aid workers examined the man, confirming that Curt had indeed died. It was clear he had passed away earlier, not at the airport. The police were called, and both women were arrested on suspicion of failing to report a death, a crime under UK law. Authorities believed he might have died up to 24 hours before arriving at the airport. The women denied this, explaining they genuinely thought he was alive. Curt suffered from Alzheimer's and had recently been hospitalized for pneumonia. They said the hospital would not have released him if he had been seriously ill. They also explained the sunglasses. Curt had an eye problem, and they wanted to prevent people from staring. They had checked his temperature and breathing, and many people had seen him before the flight without concern. After questioning the women and reviewing the case, authorities decided not to pursue further legal action, and the investigation was closed. Back in the early days of the internet, there was a popular trick people kept falling for. It looked like a normal little game where you had to move a small dot through a tight path without hitting the sides. Everything seemed calm and quiet, so players would lean in and focus hard. Then out of nowhere, a horrible face would jump onto the screen, and a loud scream would burst out of the speakers. It scared people so badly that many would fall out of their chairs. There were tons of videos like this. One showed a car rolling down a hill in a peaceful way until a monster suddenly popped up. Another was just a looping clip of a room, and then after a long time, it would let out a shocking scream. Kids shared these videos everywhere. These jump scare videos slowly disappeared as old websites and programs stopped working, but anyone who grew up with them still remembers the shock they gave. Even now, many people double-check videos before hitting play, just in case something is hiding at the end. Michelle Pogmore. Michelle Pogmore was a 13-year-old girl living in Mount Druitt, a suburb in Western Sydney, Australia. She was kind, smart, and caring, and many people remembered her for being gentle and friendly. Michelle loved stories and fairy tales, and she enjoyed reading. She also liked spending time with other kids, including some who were older than her. While she was loved by her family, Michelle had been struggling in her life and sometimes acted out. On Thursday, February 19, 2004, Michelle came home from school upset. Later that day, her mother gave her a new pair of running shoes. Michelle put the shoes on right away. She then told her mother she was going shopping at Mount Druitt Mall. She left the house, but she never came home. Her mother became worried and reported her missing. In the early hours of Friday morning, February 20th, Michelle was seen on security cameras at the Mount Druitt Mall. It was around 3 a.m. and she was alone. She was wearing a dark blue hoodie with USA on the front, white track pants, and her new shoes. This was the last confirmed time she was seen alive. Later that same Friday night, Michelle was seen at a street party in Bidwell, a nearby suburb. The party was a community event run by a youth outreach program. It was meant to be safe. Video footage showed Michelle at the party, but her mother did not know she was going there. At some point during the night, Michelle got into an argument with someone at the party and left upset. No one has ever come forward to explain what happened after she left or who she was with. After Michelle left the party, she disappeared. No one knows where she went, who she met, or how she ended up where she did. Police believe she may have been alive for 1 or 2 days after she was last seen. On Sunday, February 22, 2004, Michelle's body was found in bushland near the Mount Druitt Town Center Reserve. This area was less than 1 kilometer from where she lived. She was found partially clothed. Her white track pants and her new shoes were missing and have never been found. Because of the heat that weekend, police could not find an exact time or cause of death. Investigators were able to collect a DNA sample, but it has never been matched to anyone. No witnesses have come forward, and no one has been charged. The case slowly went cold. 8 weeks before Michelle disappeared, she was assaulted by a stranger and spent days in the hospital. She told police she did not know the man who attacked her and only knew that he was between 50 and 60 years old. After this attack, Michelle struggled even more. Community workers and police tried to help her, but they were unable to fully protect her. Police have never said if they believe the same person was responsible for both crimes. The coroner did not officially rule Michelle's death as a murder, even though many questions remain unanswered. To this day, no one knows exactly what happened to Michelle Pogmore. Valérie Aubin. Valérie Aubin was a 23-year-old woman living in Montreal in the summer of 2003. She lived with her father in a small, working-class neighborhood while staying close with her mother and sister. Friends said she was kind and always tried to see the best in people. Like many young people at the time, Valérie spent time in online chat rooms, meeting new people and making friends. One summer, she met a man online who seemed friendly and helpful. They talked for a while, and she mentioned a problem with her computer. The man, who lived nearby, offered to come over to fix it. When he arrived, everything seemed normal. Her father was home and even spoke with the man, and when he left, her father offered to drive him home. Nothing appeared unusual at the time. But this man, Dwayne, had a dark history. He was 24 years old and had previously attacked a young girl, gaining her trust before hurting her. He had a pattern of befriending young women and then harming them. Now he had been inside Valérie's home, seen the layout, and identified his next target. In the days after his visit, Dwayne watched Valérie's home. He noted when her father left for work, planning to return when the house was empty. On the morning of July 14, 2003, Dwayne returned. He had told himself he would steal computer equipment, but Valérie was home. When she saw him inside her house, she was confused, and the situation quickly became deadly. Dwayne attacked her in the kitchen. She fought, but eventually, he killed her. Afterward, Dwayne called a friend named Raymond. Together, they took her body to Raymond's apartment. There, they did horrible things to her remains, placing them in a hockey bag. They then drove to the St. Lawrence River and dumped the bag in the water. 2 days later, on July 16th, they returned to Valérie's home and set it on fire, hoping to destroy any evidence. Valérie's father, finding his home burned and his daughter missing, immediately contacted the police. For 4 days, her family lived in fear, not knowing if she was alive or dead. On July 20th, 2003, people walking along the river discovered a hockey bag washed up on the shore. Inside were Valérie's dismembered remains. Police quickly connected the crime to Dwayne. He and Raymond were arrested within 48 hours of the discovery. In October 2004, both men pled guilty to avoid a trial. Raymond, who helped after the murder, was sentenced to 42 months in prison. Dwayne pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, arson, and desecrating a body. He was given life in prison with no chance of parole for 15 years. At sentencing, he said he wished he could turn back time. Valérie's mother rejected this, saying he had lost his humanity. Her funeral was held on July 26, 2003, with her family asking for donations to mental health organizations instead of flowers. Valérie was young, kind, and full of life, and her story is remembered as a tragic warning about trust, danger, and the risks that can hide behind friendly faces online. Sheila Miller. Sheila Miller, a 40-year-old woman, told the court about the day her mother was killed in their home in the Villages, a quiet retirement community in Florida. On July 21, 2006, 3 young men came to her parents' house. One of them, Ronaldo McGurth, used to be her drug dealer. He called her that day, saying he had a gift for her, and she gave him directions to her home. Sheila had been living with her parents, Diana and James Miller, because she was hurt in a car accident and needed help. She used a wheelchair, and her parents had rented special equipment for her. When the men arrived, Sheila let them in, not knowing what they planned. Soon after, McGurth and another man, Theodore Houston, tied Sheila's hands, head, and mouth with duct tape. While Sheila was tied up, McGurth shot her mother, Diana, in the chest. Sheila described seeing her mother fall on the bed and cough up blood. Diana kept telling her daughter everything would be okay, even as she was dying. Sheila's father, James, was also shot in the head but survived. Sheila was then taken outside and put into a van with the men. They forced her to give them her parents' bank card codes and drove her to different ATMs to take money. During the getaway, the police chased them. The van they were in went dangerously fast, and the chase ended when officers used spike strips to blow out the tires. The van flipped several times before stopping. All 3 men were arrested, and Sheila survived without serious injuries. In court, Sheila said she knew McGurth because of her past with drugs. She admitted she had problems with alcohol and drugs before, but she had stopped using hard drugs after her mother's death. The third man, Houston, agreed to testify against the others in exchange for a lighter sentence. McGurth and another man, Jared Roberts, faced charges of first-degree murder, kidnapping, attempted murder, and armed robbery. Later, McGurth was sentenced to life without parole, and Roberts also received life in prison. Houston, who was younger, was sentenced to 20 years and has since been released. Sheila's role in the crime caused questions. Although she was a victim, her father believed she played a part in bringing the men into their home. Sheila admitted she should never have let McGurth into the house and expressed regret for her actions, saying her choices helped lead to the tragedy. Leonie Astra Hutchinson. In the early 2000s, a quiet country town in New South Wales went on as usual. Nothing much ever happened there. People kept to their routines, and families lived far apart on bushland. A woman named Kate lived on the edge of this town with her children. She had several kids, the youngest being a baby girl named Leonie, who was just over 1 year old. Kate did not have much money and moved around often. She did not stand out, and there were no reports of trouble or violence in her home. To most people, she was just another parent trying to get by. At some point in 2001, Leonie stopped being seen. She no longer went out with the family, and no one outside the home noticed she was missing. There was no search and no report made to police. Life went on, and the little girl seemed to simply fade away. Later that year, community workers checked on the family after getting general concerns. During one visit, they asked Kate where her youngest child was. Kate said the girl was safe and being looked after by friends. She did not give names or a place. Because there was no clear sign of danger, the workers wrote it down and closed the case. For the next 2 years, no one saw Leonie. There were no doctor visits, no school records, and no proof that she was alive. Still, nothing was done. In 2003, welfare workers returned. Once again, Kate gave unclear answers. Sometimes she said the child was nearby. Other times she said the girl was with people who were meant to care for her. She would not let anyone see the child or say exactly where she was. Her stories did not match, and they did not make sense. Police later learned something very troubling. No family member, friend, or neighbor had seen Leonie since early 2001. That meant nearly 3 years had passed without a single sighting. In 2004, police finally listed Leonie as a missing person. A special team was formed to find out what happened. Officers searched records and spoke to anyone who had known the family. What they found was almost nothing. There was no birth record. After her first year, there were no medical files. It was as if the child had never existed. Kate had moved again and was living on a very remote property. She refused to help police and said her daughter was alive but would not prove it. She spoke in strange ways and said the police would not understand even if she explained. By 2006, police said they believed Leonie was dead, but they had no body and no clear proof. Kate was watched but not charged. In 2013, the case was reviewed again. During this time, police found a handwritten note on the property. It spoke of love and goodbye. Friends also came forward and said Kate had talked about the child in spiritual terms and said the girl was special. Some claims were disturbing, but none could be proven. Police also looked at a deep well on the land. It was unsafe to search fully, but officers said it could have been used to hide remains. Nothing was found. The official findings said Leonie was likely dead and that the case was suspicious, but no final answers were given. In 2016, more than 15 years after the child was last seen, Kate was arrested and charged with her daughter's murder. The case was based on years of silence, false stories, and missing time. There was still no body, but police believed the truth could no longer be ignored. The case remains mostly closed to the public. What is clear is that a very young child disappeared, and for years, no one noticed in time. Death of Sonny Sheu. Sonny Sheu was a small business owner who lived in Queens, New York. He was born in Taiwan and moved to the United States for a better life. In 2011, Sonny was found unconscious in an empty lot near his home. He had serious injuries to his head. A few hours later, he died. At first, the police said Sonny died from natural causes, like a brain aneurysm. But later, the medical examiner said something very different. The official report said Sonny died from blunt force trauma to the head. His skull was damaged and his brain was injured. This meant his death was not natural. For years before his death, Sonny was involved in a long legal fight over his home. His house was taken through foreclosure, even though Sonny said the sale was based on fraud. He believed important court documents were fake and that his property was stolen unfairly. His case ended up in front of a New York State judge named Joseph Galea. Sonny believed Judge Galea was corrupt. He said the judge ignored clear proof of fraud and kept ruling against him. Sonny also claimed the judge lied on official financial forms by not listing all of his property. Sonny filed formal complaints, asked for public records, and contacted many government offices. He even reached out to the FBI. Because he was scared for his life, Sonny recorded a video. In the video, he said that if anything happened to him, the people he was exposing would be responsible. He said this clearly and calmly, weeks before his death. On the day Sonny was hurt, June 26, 2011, he was found far from his normal walking area. When Sonny's friends went to the hospital, they were told different stories. At first, doctors said there was no sign of injury. Later, the medical examiner confirmed there was serious head trauma. The cause of death was officially listed as blunt force trauma to the head. Even after this finding, police still did not treat the case as a possible crime. They claimed a witness saw Sonny fall, but the witness was never named. Records about a 911 call were never released. Some police officers later said they had never even heard of Sonny's case. Strange things continued to happen after Sonny died. His body was moved from the hospital without clear permission. It was taken to the morgue before any family or close friends officially identified him. Later, his body was cremated by a person who was not related to him and was not legally in charge of his estate. Months after Sonny's death, something else shocking happened. The house he fought for over 10 years was returned to his estate. The mortgage was fully paid. No clear reason was ever given for why this happened. Despite all these facts, Sonny Sheu's case received almost no media attention. There were no press conferences, no major news stories, and no public answers. Only a few independent reporters and citizen journalists continued to ask questions. Peter Connolly, better known as Baby P, was a one-year-old boy born in London on March 1, 2006. His mother, Tracy Connolly, had 3 daughters from a previous relationship and was struggling to care for all her children. Peter's father was not in the picture, and Tracy moved to a new home where she met Stephen Barker, a 33-year-old man who would later live with them. Peter's father was a loving man and became worried when he saw the living conditions of Tracy's new home. The house was untidy, smelled of urine, and he feared for the safety of his children. He contacted social services, who checked on the family and initially found no serious problems. They noted that Tracy suffered from depression and didn't always know how to care for her children, but she was trying her best. At this time, Baby P was lively, affectionate, and seemed to have a normal bond with his mother. Problems began when Peter was hospitalized in December 2006 for a head injury. Doctors noticed bruises on his face and chest. Tracy told police that only she and her mother, Mary, looked after Peter, but this was not true. Stephen Barker had been living with them for months and was reportedly taking care of the children. Baby P was put on the at-risk register, and social workers got more involved. Despite several hospital visits and signs of serious injuries, Peter was repeatedly returned to his mother and Stephen's care. Social workers and doctors sometimes suspected abuse, but often accepted Tracy's explanations that Peter had fallen or been hurt while playing. Meanwhile, Stephen Barker had a violent past and a history of cruelty to animals, which was unknown to the authorities at the time. Peter began showing signs of fear and withdrawal, especially around Stephen. He was taken to hospitals several times for injuries, including bruises and scratches, but these were not treated as serious. In June 2007, Peter was briefly placed with a family friend, but he was soon returned to Tracy's care after the injuries were labeled as accidental, since he was a very active baby. Tragically, on August 3, 2007, Baby P was found unresponsive at home. Paramedics tried to save him, but he was pronounced dead at the hospital. A post-mortem revealed over 50 injuries, including bruises, cuts, a broken spine, fractured ribs, and internal bleeding. Many of these injuries had existed for weeks or months, and the neglect by social services and doctors was widely criticized. The case went to trial in 2008. Tracy Connolly pleaded guilty to allowing Peter's death and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Stephen Barker and his brother Jason were both found guilty of causing or allowing Peter's death. Stephen was also convicted of abusing another person. He was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 22 years, while Jason received a shorter prison term and was released in 2011. The case caused public outrage because many professionals, including social workers and doctors, had failed to protect Baby P despite clear signs of abuse. Reviews later led to several resignations and dismissals, including the pediatrician who last examined Peter before his death. In 2006, a man, Gary Hutchinson, could not walk and lived alone in a small apartment. He used a wheelchair and had many health problems. Sometimes his body would suddenly fail him, and he would fall to the floor. When this happened, it was very hard for him to move or stand back up. The man had a pet cat. The cat lived with him and was his only company. The man once tried to teach the cat something unusual: to press buttons on a phone if he ever needed help. He was not sure if the cat understood or remembered anything at all. One night, the man fell out of his wheelchair and landed on the floor near his bed. He was in pain and could not reach his emergency tools. He was stuck and alone, with no way to call for help. A short time later, the police received a call to the emergency number from the man's home. The call was silent. No one spoke. When the police tried to call back and got no answer, they decided to go to the apartment to check. When an officer arrived, he saw something strange. The phone was on the floor, and the cat was sitting right next to it. In the bedroom, the officer found the man on the ground, hurt but still alive. There was no one else in the apartment. The man later said he believed his cat had pressed the phone button on purpose. The police could not find any other reason for the call. The man survived and said the cat saved his life. Even though no one can be fully sure what happened, the timing made the story hard to ignore. The 2003 heatwave in Europe. In early August 2003, an elderly woman was found dead in her small apartment in Paris. She had lived alone for many years and only saw care workers from time to time. After several days with no sign of her, a neighbor became worried and called for help. When emergency workers arrived, they found her lying on her bed. She had died alone, without anyone noticing. She was not the only one. During those same days, more and more bodies were found across Paris. At first it was slow, one person, then another, then many more. Most of them were elderly people who lived alone. As the days passed, it became clear that something terrible was happening. A severe heat wave had taken over much of Europe. That summer, temperatures rose above 40 degrees Celsius in many countries. In France alone, nearly 15,000 people died from heat-related causes. Across Europe, the total number of deaths reached more than 70,000. The heat was especially dangerous for older people and those with health problems. Their bodies could not handle the long days and nights of extreme heat. Many of the homes where people lived were not built for such weather. Older buildings were designed to keep heat inside during winter. Few had air conditioning, which was rare at the time. Windows were often kept closed for safety or to block noise, but this trapped hot air inside. Many elderly people could not help themselves. Some could not move easily. Others could not open windows or get water. Many had no family nearby and no one checking on them. Even in care homes, the situation was bad. A small number of workers had to care for many people, and warning signs were often missed. As deaths increased, morgues and funeral homes ran out of space. Refrigerated trucks were brought in to hold bodies. Families were told they would have to wait days or even weeks for funerals. Deaths were recorded as caused by illness, not heat. Because of this, the crisis grew quietly. By the time the truth became impossible to ignore, thousands had already died alone, unnoticed, and forgotten during one of the hottest summers Europe had ever seen. Back in 2005, there was a big anime event in Brazil. At this event, they had a cosplay contest. A medical student named Tarciso Felix was going to the event. He was dressed as a character from Naruto called Kankuro. Kankuro uses a life-size puppet in the show, so Tarciso made a puppet to carry on his back. While walking to the event, the puppet started falling apart. One part, the head, started sagging. Tarciso ran into a lab on campus to fix it quickly. He grabbed some things and wrapped the puppet until it looked okay enough to go on. It wasn't perfect, but he didn't have time to make it better. At the event, Tarciso had fun. He met friends, talked about anime, and got compliments on his costume. When it was time to go on stage for the contest, he was excited but didn't expect to win. Then things got gross. Other cosplayers noticed a terrible smell coming from his puppet. It smelled like rotten food. People went backstage and asked Tarciso what was inside. When he showed them, everyone was shocked. Instead of fixing the puppet with normal materials, Tarciso had used a real dead body from the medical lab. The police were called, and Tarciso was arrested. The rest of the event was canceled. Because of how disgusting this was, the story was mostly hidden for years. But recently, old pictures and reports have started to surface,